Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Thursday, June the 11th, 2026, and today we're talking frosted potatoes. We're touring our hedges and discussing strawberries in humid conditions where the diseases are the fruitful ones, unfortunately. So let's do it. All right, lovely Thursday to you all. I hope everyone is doing well this week. It is the official World Cup kickoff today, which is, as promised, I will try to be as chill about as I possibly can be for the next month or so. Luckily, work should keep me relatively busy. Yesterday was a good example of that after the live show, which shouts to everyone who came out for that. That was super fun, as it always is. But after the show, I went out and started putting up the lines for our first round of tomato trellising, meaning I took twine from one post to the next to stand them up. They are still a little small for a Florida weave. I mean, I could have done it, but for me, it makes more sense to stand them up this time. And the next time I'll do a little weave around the plants to kind of add that stability. Then I also pruned and trellised the tunnel tomatoes. Nothing super special in the afternoon, some harvesting and odds and ends, though I did start some more green beans and summer squash. I've started harvesting the green beans, so that's usually when I start the next round. And I usually start the second round of summer squash when they start flowering, but I sort of dropped the ball on that. I guess with summer squash, I usually shoot for like 3 rounds of squash / zucchini. I will admit that I don't always feel like doing that, but it's a relatively easy crop for us to grow and sell, especially midsummer after everyone else's has cropped out. Like most people just grow 1 round and then they're done. So I like to keep it rolling with that. What are things looking like on your farms this month? Let us know, or better yet, upload a 20-second farm video clip to Dropbox or Drive and share that with Farmer Mike at no-tillgrowers.com. Truly love seeing those. All right, so Thursdays are our group therapy day, where we take a few Patreon questions and where I encourage you to think about how you would answer them, because the best way to learn is to teach. So I will still take a few Patreon questions, but please feel encouraged to add your thoughts and comments in the comments section as to how you may answer them or think about these questions. So today's first Patreon question comes to us from Rob Hazel, who writes, quote, "I have 3 beds of potatoes that have suffered through 2 freezing mornings since sprouts have emerged. The new growth, which was about 2 to 3 inches tall, has all turned black and appears to be dead. Do I need to start over and replant, or will more sprouts emerge? If more growth appears, will yield be poor? Thanks," end quote. Okay, so this came in about a month and a half ago, at which point I did jump in and offer my thoughts. So don't worry, I didn't leave Rob hanging. But that means I'm not 100% sure where Rob is on this situation, but I can tell you that what we've found will happen after your potatoes get toasted. 1, you will probably lose some yield, indeed. A huge percentage of their energy, of the potatoes' energy, has been wasted in the new growth dying back from the frost. And although they are likely to recover and rebound due to the large amount of energy stored in the seed tuber, frosts can significantly affect yields, according to research, and some of the plants may die. That frost can also push the harvest back a couple weeks to a few weeks and even lead to a weaker plant, which may receive more unwanted attention from pests and disease. Things like potato beetles are the recyclers of the insect world, and if they sense an unhealthy or unhappy plant, they're going to take advantage of that. I've had almost no potato beetle damage over the last few years, except when the plants have been toasted. This year, they got double toasted, which I consider to be worth at least 5 solid expletives, and the potato beetles hit the plants that were already behind. Anyway, the short answer is that yes, they will likely bounce back, these potato plants, but probably just not at full capacity. Therefore, it's important, and I'm including myself in this, to remember to protect your potatoes from frost if you can. I completely forgot about the potatoes during the late cold snap that we had, and in my defense, the frost that we got was way harder than I anticipated, so that's on me. But early potatoes do require more protection. I've not seen any literature on what to do if they do bounce back to increase their yields, though my instinct is perhaps just to run a round of fish hydrolysate to give them a little nitrogen boost. Maybe add a little bit of compost if you want. Anyway, hopefully they bounce back for you, Rob, and were no trouble. Chances are that most of them came back, but you may have had some gaps, just depending on how small the seed potatoes were and how many eyes they had on them when you planted them. Anyway, let us know, and we can always discuss this topic further. Listeners and viewers, what have been your experiences with the bad kind of fried potatoes? Let us know, and otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, hedge rock, hedgerow, BRB. Here's a little update on the potatoes. They all look pretty good. I mean, you can see like they're starting to die back now. So it's probably harvest in about 2 weeks. There's still a handful of potato beetles about, but for the most part, they've recovered pretty well. The spots where they were the worst, which was like right here, and that mostly looks okay. Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Grown By. Grow smarter with Grown By, the farmer-owned cooperative. Grown By is the platform for online sales of everything, custom and traditional CSAs, halves of beef, flower bouquets, wholesale to restaurants, and now Grown By supports in-person sales too. Their new app, Grown By Register, you can supercharge your market and farm stand, finally bringing together your online and offline sales and customer data. Grown By is proud to make local food accessible by processing SNAP benefits online and in person right within the app. Grown By helps you put your best food forward. Schedule a demo at coop.grownby.com/no-till. That's coop.grownby.com/no-till. All right, back to the show. A quick and loving reminder, if you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's second Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Rhea Paulette, who asks, quote, "Can you please discuss your hedgerows some more? What species are included? How are they organized? What parts of your property are they on? How do you propagate them? I'm a backyard gardener and have been dreaming about hedgerows and living fences as long-term projects. Thanks," end quote. Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. Now, I should say we have operated somewhat timidly with our hedgerows on our new farm, and that's a little bit by design. What I mean is that I've learned over way too many farms that I've had that things and plans change. So we tried not to go too crazy with the hedgerows when we first started the gardens. And I honestly think that was more than the right call because we have moved plots around, resituated some areas, etc. The thing is, because we're on a limited land base even with good design, I could not have predicted some of the things that I learned about this land in terms of, for instance, the fact that there was a random drain tile leading right into one plot that wasn't on any of the soil surveys. So I had to completely redesign that plot. Luckily, I didn't have to tear out or move any hedgerows to do so because I waited to put them in. So the first 2 years where the hedge wedges are called, so-called because they are little wedges of ground between plots that are kind of angled because of the way our slope is. Anyway, in those spots, we planted mostly annuals and we didn't go straight to perennials. There was one area where we did put in some perennials like comfrey along with some bronze fennel, anise hyssop, and other flowering plants because it was just not likely to move anytime soon because of just where it was. So we knew we could put some perennials there. The other spaces we weren't 100% sure about. So we just kind of left those in, mostly annuals. That same perennial spot now has some native elderberry and a lovely little native sassafras tree, which doesn't bring you anything. But if you do use a little bit of those roots in the branches, you can get a nice little sassafras tea out of. And I made root beer several years ago using the sassafras, and it was delicious. It was a little boozy, but it was delicious. With the other hedges, we're slowly mixing in some natives in perennials and still doing some, like common flowers as well that we like, such as borage and amaranth and marigolds, etc., plus lavender and some others. So our approach has effectively been to take our time, learn the land a little bit, find some species that would work, and slowly insert them around our birdhouses, of course. That isn't necessarily the way everyone should do it. I think if you have the space and your gardens are already set, getting a space well mulched and choosing some varieties that make sense for you where you are, preferably at least some natives, and going ahead and getting those planted is fine. For us, we are going slow, and I think in retrospect, that was probably one of the few good decisions that I have made. I don't think growers should focus entirely on edible stuff either. I mean, grow some fun edible stuff like elderberries and serviceberries are two good ones for us, but flowers are just as important and can be just as fun. And like I said, that sassafras tree, really pretty tree. Also, you can make some tea out of it. Talk to a local native plant nursery with your parameters, like cannot grow over X feet high or X feet wide or whatever, and see what they say. Get the ground really well prepped too. That was one thing that we could have done better. Tarped it for a year, then planted the perennials and then mulched those really well. That would have probably helped a ton in terms of maintenance. But yeah, not a lot more to say on our hedgerows yet. They are still a big work in progress. Yes, even 6 seasons into this new farm, as some species work and some don't. But I'm a big fan of them and intend to keep expanding our hedges over time. I like having all those pollinators there. I like having that little bit of habitat there near the garden, places for birds to land, all that stuff. But good question, and I will continue to update you all as well as those things grow. Like I said, I've taken my somewhat slow, pragmatic, long-term approach to this farm, and I think that's been probably the best choice I've ever made farming. Of course, there is also the labor and expense factor when it comes to putting these things in. They're not cheap hedges to install, especially when you start getting into native plants and stuff. So when building a new farm for us, we had and still have several other areas that need our focus a little bit more financially. Therefore, with the hedges, it's slow and steady that wins the race. Otherwise, I think that we will take a quick break. And when we come back, strawberries where the diseases grow like weeds, the South. I'm talking about the South, the Southern United States. It gets real down there. Anyway, BRB. All right, a little milpa patch update. Got these 4 beds here. Corn, sunflower, and beans growing pretty well over here. That looks pretty good. Got our winter squashes in the middle. Need to hit the paths one good time with some cultivation before it really takes over. It's kind of grown faster than I thought it would. And then more corn, beans, and sunflowers over here. But yeah, once this dries out, hit these paths one time, and then I'll just let the milpa patch do the work.
Good afternoon, soil nerds. Early June, zone 5B. Garden is pumping. We got everything growing here. Pulled some pea pods today. They're almost done for the season. Soaking it up.
All right, y'all. Farmer Mike here. Wanted to drop in to show you something that I thought was going to be terrible and turned out to be delicious. So I thought I'd share it with the good people of the world. Last night was feeling a little spicy, was feeling a little saucy, and wanted to do something new with my cherry tomatoes that are coming on strong. And so I present to you tomato lemonade. Now, hear me out here. It doesn't have a really strong tomato flavor, but just a subtle hint on the back of the old taste buds. Sweet as lemonade, it's delicious. All you do, take a handful of cherry tomatoes, crush them up, put some lemons in there, crush those up, a little bit of ice water, a little bit of sugar, mix it around, drink it. Thank me later. Try it. Let me know what you think.
All right, our third and final Patreon question of the day comes to us from Myra Rosenblatt, who asks, quote, I grow strawberries from plugs I purchase in the fall. I compost the plants after production because perennial culture of strawberries is difficult here in Mississippi due to disease zone 8A, 8B. I have one large area of raised beds that the strawberries always do best in. Do you think a summer planting in those beds of field peas, squash, etc. would offset the disease issue enough to not have to rotate them to other beds? I'm buying fresh plant starts / plugs each year, end quote. Okay, great question here. And indeed, hot, humid areas like that, like in the South, can be really tough on crops like strawberries. Like here in Kentucky, we're not really a fruit growing region for a reason. Too hot, too wet, too humid. Fruits mostly don't love that, unless you're a watermelon. They like it okay. So, well, the first thing I will say is that it's good to know specifically which disease or diseases that you are dealing with. Some pathogens might have strawberry strains that are more resistant to them than others, and therefore might be worth trying. That could be the first place to start in terms of maybe being, able to vaguely perennialize the strawberries in your area. And also maybe look for local suppliers. If you're getting them from, say, up north or out west or something, they may not have the disease resistance that you need. In general, I don't think a cover crop would hurt going into the fall this year. They can generally enliven the soil a little bit, so it certainly can help. And I would get some good compost as well to add along with the cover crops for them to sort of work into the soil and free up the nutrients and all those things. Field peas would be good going into the fall. I always like that one. You could always throw some sorghum Sudan grass in there as well. Those will both die in a relatively hard frost. The squash you mentioned there is fine if you're not planning to use that bed for cucurbits. Lacey Fusilia might be another good option, as would a radish or turnip. Plant those late in the summer and either terminate them or have the winter do it for you, assuming that you get some decent frosts there. Now, the other thing worth considering is just a miniature tunnel over that bed. One of the biggest issues is just going to be moisture on the leaves and on the fruit, and having a little mini tunnel over that bed is something that you can put on and maybe take off depending on the season. That mini tunnel could not only, speed up the strawberry production, but keep them protected from staying too wet on the leaves and begging disease to come and find them. So yeah, maybe identify the disease that you're dealing with, look for some resistant varieties, and maybe just for goofs, try to add some new ones just to see how long they can hang. Also, if it's a soil-borne disease, maybe a round of mustard in your cover crop mix would help alleviate that a little bit before the strawberries go in. Give the soil a little extra compost and a little extra cover crop love. I'm always good with that. And then, yeah, consider a little mini tunnel that can be ventilated relatively easy, just at least for that bed. That should help. Though, of course, you are definitely in the region of plant pathogens. It's the state flower, I think, of the South, unfortunately. Anyway, listeners and viewers, you can feel free to add your thoughts. Otherwise, I think that is it for this Thursday. I've got some World Cupping to get to. Actually, I don't. I have like a ton of work to do, and then maybe I can get some World Cupping in this afternoon. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out as well. An enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Big thank you to Michelle. Big thank you to the No Till Growers Board of Directors. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of June, you will get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Julie, Dan and Berta. Thanks for bumping up there, Dan. Good stuff. And Jacob Paulus. Shouts to all of you for keeping our story going this week. All right, so we're going to return to our gardener, Lynette, deep in Arkansas, speaking of the South, who grows something altogether different in her garden, and definitely not strawberries. That's not an easy one. But anyway, she grows something altogether different in her garden, and if the authorities knew what it was, there's no way they would allow it, or maybe not. This particular crop had been passed down to Lynette by a lady she met in the swamps one day near Gum Swamp in Arkansas in the national park. When Lynette was there to hike and get away, get stuff off of her mind, when she ran into an older lady on the trail who was harvesting lichen from a nearby tree. Lynette stopped to ask what she was doing, and the older lady said, harvesting magic. Intrigued, Lynette asked her, what could that possibly mean? And the older lady smiled and said, if I show you, you can't unsee it. And if you can't unsee it, you can't ignore it. What is it? That is for tomorrow on the Garden of Life, I guess. I guess we're just rolling with that. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll see you then. Bye.